Imagine you're taking part in an experiment. They give you 5 math puzzles. When you finish up, they say, okay, you're gonna do another round of puzzles in a few minutes. But before then, you have a choice. You can spend the next 3 minutes practicing more puzzles, or you can spend the next 3 minutes reflecting on the practice that you just did. Which one would you choose? Well, if you're like me, it's practice. Of course it is. This is an actual experiment that they ran in real life. And 2 really interesting things happened. First, 82% of the participants, just like you and I, they chose practice. And after those 3 minutes of either reflection or practice, the participants take on round 2 of the puzzles. The reflection group outperforms the practice group. Huh.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
These surprising and unexpected results, they're just the tip of the iceberg. Because we tracked down the person who did that pilot experiment, and it ends up she published a whale of a paper, 68 pages long, that I've spent months digging through, and I can't stop thinking about it.
I'm Giada Di Stefano. I'm an associate professor of strategy at Bocconi University in Milan in the Department of Management and Technology.
So they find this organization that puts their new hires through a really intensive training program.
And during that, we decided basically to have a control group that was going through the regular program, and another one that halfway through the training was going to switch to this reflection manipulation.
So they have over 100 participants. They divide them into 2 groups. One group, they just keep going with the normal training program. The other group, they spend the last 15 minutes of each day reflecting about the things that they learned throughout the day.
What we basically did was giving them a diary in which at the end of the day, the last 15 minutes of the workday, they could have written down the main lessons that they learned.
During the time that they're reflecting on the lessons they learned throughout the day, the control group, they're still going through the training. So they are acquiring more experience and practicing more during the time that the reflection group is thinking about what they learned throughout the day.
And then what we looked at afterwards was we tried and understand whether the people who were in this treatment condition did better compared to those who were in the control condition.
So at the end of this 2-week on-the-job training, the company always delivers a big assessment to the new hires. The control group that went through kind of the normal training process, they score a 54.4 on the final exam. The reflection group, 71.5. Nearly a 20% boost in performance. And again, the only difference between the 2 groups was 15 minutes at the end of the day. Everything else was the same.
Which was huge. Then the other thing we looked at was whether these people were going to be rated better afterwards once they started working for the firm.
Giada and her team, they actually track the participants for their first month on the job. The reflection group, their customer satisfaction scores are higher than the control group. So not only did 15 minutes of reflection at the end of the day improve their scores on the assessment, it seems to spill over into their actual job, like they're performing better than the traditional practice group. Okay, so those are some of the benefits of reflection. Now let's get into the weeds and talk about when and how to do it.
There is a difference in the sense that if you are working with an easy task, thinking about it is enough. But the more the task gets complicated, the better it is to actually write something down. Because this is when you really get the additional boost by trying to codify somehow what you're learning. If you are more of an expert, thinking about in terms of strategy helps more. If you are more of a novice, just the idea of talking about it is enough. So even when you write, just elaborating more on what is it that I'm asking you to do and what's going on is enough. If you're at the beginning, the more you become expert with the task, the more it's really about like trying to make sense of what's going on and bringing it to the next level.
I found some great research that shows the value of reflection when we experience both good and bad outcomes. And I love this so much because when you think about reflection, I'd say most of the time, people in groups don't do it. And if we do it, it's when things go bad. It's like, oh, that didn't work. We got to sit here and think. What Ellis shows is that there's value in both. When things go well, when things don't go well, spending time in reflection is valuable.
So it's not really about reflecting when you're doing poorly or when you're doing awesome. It's just about the act of stopping and thinking, which I think is important also as a takeaway for managers, because as you were saying, and I totally agree on that, people tend to resort to these tools only where things are not going well. But the reality is that if you're learning, independent of whether or not you're being a good or bad performer, this is going to help you. So why use it only when things are not going well, when you can also use it when, you're actually doing pretty good?
So the famous quote that we all hear all the time, I either win or I learn, we can upgrade it. It's I either win and I learn or I lose and I learn. Either way, spending some time in reflection is a good idea. My best advice here is don't overcomplicate it. Doing it is almost always better than not doing it. All these studies are basically just showing that reflection is more important to the learning process than we realize. Learning isn't just about doing. No, it's do, reflect, do. Taking some time and thinking about what we're doing, what we're learning, what's working, what's not, is a simple and free strategy that can help us extract more value from our experiences. This is also something we can use as leaders. Creating time and space for the people we lead to reflect on the lessons we're teaching them, the things that we're doing, is really, really important.